Now, can I invite on stage once more Pastor Shawn Boonstra. Let's give him a clap. Shawn, we are so delighted to have you here, and as I was just saying before, it's been a huge blessing, and I know who has found Shawn to be a huge blessing.
Yes.
I can change that.
I said to him, what are you doing? You're wearing your shoes. He said, I'll change that too.
Oh, it won't last.
Anyway, we will hand you over the stage, and thank you for being here with us.
Oh,
We really
thank you for the invitation.
Thank you.
I enjoyed coming back to Australia. Everything is exactly where I left it. I said that to my daughter as we were looking out the... Remember that, honey? If you didn't meet my daughter, there she is. She's Naomi. She's 12. And it's her first time here. And we looked out the airplane window as we were landing in Melbourne. I said, look at that. They haven't moved a thing. You know? Right where we left it. I'm going to speak this morning from, I was debating what I was going to speak on, and I know I've said that every time I get up, you're always debating what you're going to speak on, and I have a reason for that. Somewhere in, I think it's in the Great Controversy, but somewhere in all those pages that Sister White wrote, she mentions at one point that when the minister sits down to write a sermon, the devil's looking over his shoulder to see what he's writing about, so he knows who to distract when the sermon's delivered. I haven't found it back, but I did read that one myself. It's not from the book Ellen White Says. You've all heard that one being quoted, right? Ellen White Says. I read that quote myself, and I thought, well, that settles it. I'm taking 2 sermons into the pulpit every time I go. Let the devil guess. We're going to look at Psalm 90 this morning. This has become more and more meaningful to me as time has gone on. I know many of you are aware that our family underwent, well, a catastrophic challenge in the last 4 years. And God, for the time being, has delivered me. I promised I would like to get back to evangelism if He would give me one more go on the field, and He spared me. And so I'll spend what time I have telling people what I know of Jesus. Psalm 90. The days of our lives... That was a soap opera in the United States. Every time I start reading that verse, I catch myself. The days of our lives are 70 years, and if by reason of strength they are 80 years. That's amazing how accurate that still is. Still, even with modern medicine, the average lifespan is the 70s or 80s for the American male. Yet their boast is only labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. I sometimes wonder, that's in verse 10. I wonder if that's for Thomas Hobbes when he wrote Leviathan, got his idea. Many of you were forced to read Leviathan in college, where he describes the life of man as solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. Their boast is only labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off and we fly away. Who knows the power of your anger? Verse 11. For as the fear of you, so is your wrath. Now verse 12. We're going to read this verse. This is where we're going to focus. Then I'm going to pray, and I'm going to ask you 2 questions, and then when I'm done asking you those 2 questions, we'll be done for the morning. So teach us, this is number 12, verse 12. So teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Father in heaven, this is not an ordinary book. These are not human opinions. This is not something the psalmist thought of one day on his own. You inspired this. You whispered it in his ear through the power of the Holy Spirit, and it was meant for every generation of believers. So speak to our hearts this morning. Blow the dust out of our souls, and let us hear your will for our lives in these words. When these words were penned, you knew this audience would exist. You knew that I'd be standing here. You knew that we'd be studying together. And it's my prayer that we would hear exactly what it is that you would have us discern from this. Forgive my sin. Give me the ability to think clearly and to speak clearly in a way that honors Jesus. And I ask it this morning in Jesus' precious name. Amen. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. Numbering your days is an art that we only had to learn after we fell into sin. Adam didn't have to number his days at all. He did not have a clock ticking in the background of his life. Not before he sinned. If Adam started a project today and he didn't get done, he could continue it tomorrow. And if he didn't get it done tomorrow, he could finish it next week. And if he didn't get it done next week, he could start it again 10,000 years from now, because there was all the time in the world. I used to tell people when I was in college that I was approaching college with the Edenic plan. You had all the time in the world. I can come back to this some other time. That's amazing how I managed to cram 4 years of this wasn't easy. I crammed 4 years of a bachelor's degree into 7 years. It was difficult, but I got it done. I've been cramming my master's in public administration into 27 years now. It's still going on. Adam didn't have to get it done today. Adam didn't live with Microsoft Outlook or iCal. He didn't have to take a time management course because they never ran out of time. Eve never walked in to the home with a brochure saying, you know what, Adam, there's this all-expenses-paid cruise in the Persian Gulf, and I know we can't really afford it, but one day we'll be too old to enjoy something like that, so let's just bite the bullet and do it now. And while we're on that topic, I'm getting a little arthritis in my knee, and maybe it's time to move into a one-level bungalow now and plan ahead for our old age. They didn't plan ahead for their old age because there wasn't old age coming. There was no clock in the background. But now, ever since sin, the clock has started ticking for every one of us, and now time is not an unlimited commodity. Now you have to ration it. Now you have to make decisions about what you're going to do with every moment of your life. Teach us to number our days that we may gain a heart of wisdom. 2 questions I'm going to ask you. Question number 1, what would it look like if you lived your life perfectly? If you did it right, I don't mean sinlessly, I mean perfectly. If you lived the right life, what would that look like? What would it look like to come to the finish line with 10 minutes left to go and look back with no regrets? What's the right way to live? Now, that's not a popular question to ask anymore, not since the 1960s when Joseph Fletcher published his situational ethics and we started to tell each other there is no right way to live. All you have to do is be true to yourself, true to your own principles, live for yourself, and that is the right way to live. But other than that, there is no right or wrong way to live. That's what we tell each other. But in our hearts, we don't believe it, not even for a moment, because when you see an 18-year-old young man in perfect health, and all he does is sit on the couch all day long playing with his Nintendo, and he will not work, it's not that he can't, he won't work, and he wastes his time, and he drinks beer on the couch, we all look at that young man and say, what a waste. That is not the way you're supposed to spend this life. We recognize the wrong way to live when we see it. If a young lady marries the wrong young man, he keeps her under his thumb. He won't let her live. Sucks the life out of her. Ruins her life. We all look at that and we say that is absolutely the wrong way to live. That's not how you're supposed to do it. When we gather on the weekend around the casket of a young person who did something stupid on a Saturday night, we all look at that and we say that's a waste. That's not what this was supposed to be. It's not supposed to end like that. We have no problem recognizing the wrong way to use your time. We have no problem recognizing the wrong way to live. And if there is a wrong way to live, there's got to be a right way to live. And the question is, what is it? What's the right way to live? What's the right way to use your time? And the time to ask that question is this morning, not later when it's too late to do something about it. Because in the background of your life, there is a clock ticking. I don't know if you've heard it yet, but it is ticking the moments away and you are running out of time. I started hearing that clock just a few years ago. And I started asking those questions about my own life. A few years ago, I was in Eastern Europe, and one morning I suddenly fell over on the floor in the airport in... What country was I in? In Romania. I was in Romania, in Bucharest, and I fell over on the floor. 2 discs had blown out, L4, L5, L5, S1. All of you with back problems recognize those numbers because that's where it happens most often. But they blew out in opposite directions at the same time, and I went down like a sack of potatoes. And I'm on the floor at 6 o'clock in the morning in the airport in Bucharest, and I don't speak any Romanian, and people are just stepping over me to get around me because they assume I'm blabbering in some language they don't know, and the bar is already open in that airport at that time of day. They assume I'm drunk. I'm not drunk. Poor Royce Williams, who was already 80, helped me get on the plane and flew me home. I went to go see the surgeon, and the surgeon showed me the pictures of my back, and he said, you need surgery. I said, I don't want surgery. I don't know anybody who's ever just had one back surgery. I don't want to start. He said, you have to start. If you don't start soon, you'll become incontinent. I said, what does that mean? He said, it's not a vacation on the continent. It means you're going to lose bladder control. And I said, well, then in that case, I literally pulled my pocket knife out of my pocket at that moment, and I put it on his desk. I said, I'll lift up my shirt. You can start now. He had me on the table the next Wednesday. I went in for surgery, and I was so excited, I said to my wife, not excited about the surgery, I was so excited, I said, you know, it's a modern miracle the way they can do this now. I'm having surgery on Wednesday. It means I'll be home on Sabbath, and I'm never home on Sabbath, and you like to have people over. Why don't you invite a whole bunch of guests over on Sabbath? She said, I don't think you're going to want company. I said, oh, I will. It's like it's a day procedure. She said, they told you it's a day procedure? I said, no. They told me I'd be on my feet the next day. And I was. What I didn't understand was that meant that the physiotherapist would come into the room and force me to my feet the next day and make me hobble across the room thinking very unchristian thoughts the whole time. Day procedure. I was in bed for 9 weeks. 9 weeks getting bored. I read everything I could. I had a laptop in bed. I surfed all the way to the end of the internet. I saw the whole thing. 9 weeks I have. I saw everything on the internet. And when I got to the end of the internet, I thought, now what do I do? And I'm laying in bed thinking, I got to do something one night. I'm bored to tears. So I got my walker, and very quietly I went down the hallway. Quietly because I didn't want Jean to hear that I was about to wake up the kids for fun. And I went down the hallway, and I opened Naomi's door, and she was 4 or 5 at that time, sweetheart, and you were sound asleep, and you are always so sweet when you're asleep. You're sweet now, too. Closed the door. I opened Natalie's door. She was 8, and she was under the bedspread with a flashlight, reading a book well past curfew. It's very hard to get angry at a child who's reading in bed, isn't it? Even though it's past curfew. And the moment she heard the door open, flashlight went off. And I said, no, 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 it's Daddy. It's not Mummy. Flashlight went back on. And she stuck her head out from under the blankets. And she said, what is it, Daddy? What would you like? I said, honey, I just want to visit. I'm bored. I sat on the edge of her bed. What do you want to talk about? Anything. I looked at her face, 8 years old, and the dim light coming through the window, and I got jealous. I thought, she's 8. I had the thought that every parent's always had. She can do anything she wants, and she doesn't have to make the mistakes I made. Honey, what do you want to do with your life? She said, I don't know, Daddy, but I think I want to be a doctor or a teacher or a mommy. I said, you can do all those things. She said, really? I can do it. She said, first you become a doctor so Daddy can got somebody to lean on in his old age. But then you can go back and teach other doctors, and then you become a mommy all at the same time. You can do it all. She said, I could do it all. You could do anything you put your heart to, honey. Anything at all. I said, why do you want to do those things? I said, Daddy, I just want to help people. How is it when we come into this world, we kind of get what life is about? And then we let them beat it out of us when we get older. I just want to help people. I said, that's so sweet. I kissed her on the forehead and I was getting ready to go. And she said, besides, next time you need surgery, I can do it. Well, Daddy's not going to need surgery again for a long time, honey. That was sort of a once-in-a-million thing. It's not going to happen. Oh, no, Daddy, I've been looking at this, and it won't be too far from now. You turn 50, and that is an old man, and you're going to need a knee replacement and a hip replacement. You may even need a plate in your head, and I will do it all at a discount. I went to bed feeling horrible that night. I woke Jean up at 2:30 in the morning. I shook her awake. She, what are you? She hates being woken up in the middle of the night. She's so selfish that way. I shook her awake in the middle of the night. I said, it's horrible. She said, what's so horrible? Are you in pain? I said, no. I've burned through more than half a tank of fuel. She said, well, that's no problem. You're not even driving your car yet. What are you worried about? I'll fill your car up when you're... I'm not talking about driving. I'm talking about me. I'm through more than half a tank, and I don't know how deep the last half of the tank is. She said, oh, go to sleep. You'll feel better tomorrow. I didn't. I went back on the internet. Do other men feel this way at some point in their life? And yes, they do. That's when I found the internet death clock. If I ever get my hands on the young person who made the internet death clock, it's this website. Don't look it up unless you're in a really good mood. You put in your vital statistics, the year you were born, you know, your gender, a little bit about your lifestyle habits. Do you smoke? Do you drink? And so on. And then based on the national average, it tells you what day you can expect to die. The good news is mine landed on a Sabbath. I can preach in the morning, I can die afterwards, and the potluck can double as my funeral wake. That's Dutch thinking. It saves my wife a lot of money. You bury me in the afternoon. The worst part about the site is that it suddenly pops up a clock and it starts counting down your time in seconds. I had 1.8 billion seconds and it starts running out in front of you. I checked again on my way here, I only have 1.3 left. I've burned through a whole bunch more. And people say, well, that's a lot of time. 1.8 billion seconds, is it? I'm going to burn through 3,600 of your seconds before I'm done speaking. This time tomorrow morning, 85,000. In a little under 2 weeks, 1 million. It's not much. It's running out. Running out. Then the big one happened. I was in the emergency room, which has happened to me a lot in recent years. And I browned out. I heard the monitor go flat. Gene screamed, "You're flatlining!" My eyes have started slipping down the tunnel. If you've ever been curious about the state of the dead, I can tell you there's nothing down that tunnel. Nothing there. Jean reached for my eyes. She's pushing my eyes open, saying, "Stay with me, stay with me." And the only thought in my mind is, you know I hate it when you touch my face. It was almost my dying words. "Don't touch my face." A few minutes later, I don't know how long I was sort of browned out, came to, and there were 8 or 9 nurses and doctors around. "You scared us." I said, "I scared you." Put yourself on the gurney for a moment. Do me a favor. Just close your eyes and go there. You're in the emergency room. It's you laying on the bed. You may as well do it because it's coming. It's going to happen. No, it really is. I mean, this is not a matter of if. This is when. If Jesus doesn't come, you're going to be there, and you will be in the last 5 minutes of your life. It's coming. Can you see yourself there? You may as well get used to it. Ask yourself one question. If you look back over everything you've lived up to that moment, are you happy with the way you used your life? You can open your eyes. Next question. What's the greatest need a human being has? People say it's food. Can't live more than 40 days without some food. Nah, it's water. You only go 4 days without water. Oxygen, 4 minutes. I'm not talking about physiological need. I'm talking about emotional needs. People say, well, that one's easy. It's love. Love's the greatest need in the world. Well, love's important. We know what happens, you know, in an orphanage when children are not held and sung to and they don't get stories. They don't thrive, those babies. But the ones who are held and loved, they thrive. It's a deep human need. But is it the deepest need we have as human beings? I don't actually believe it. I think we've learned that from Top 40 radio in the last several decades, that love is all I need. Love's important. God is love. But what's the most profound need we have as human beings? The more experts study it, the more they realize the deepest need we have is to know that our life means something. That you mean something. You want to know when your time is up and the Lord hasn't come and you get down to those last 5 minutes and you're standing at the finish line. You want to know, am I about to fade into obscurity if the Lord doesn't come and somebody's walking through the graveyard and they see my headstone and they wipe away the moss and they see my name? Is it going to mean anything to them? Who am I? What did my life mean? Am I about to fade away into obscurity? Will anybody remember me? Will anybody miss me when I'm gone? It's the deepest need. I guess the best way to ask that question if you're a believer, did my life put a smile on the face of God? Did my life put a smile on the face of God? About the last thing you want to discover in the last 5 minutes is that you blew it, that you wasted it. I've sat with a lot of dying people, and I know some of you have too. I've noticed something interesting. I know what bothers you in the last 10 minutes, and I know what doesn't bother you. If you die poor, it's not going to bother you in the last 10 minutes. It doesn't mean anything. If you never owned a yacht, you never had an extra house, you never had 3 cars in the garage, that's not going to bother you in the last 5 minutes at all. If you were never famous, you never had your name in lights, you were never on the front page of the newspaper, never had your name on a star in the Hollywood Walk of Fame, not going to bother you in the last 5 minutes. Even if your life was tough, that's not going to bother you in the last 5 minutes. A lot of people, in fact, tell me I have the character I have today and the experiences I have today because I battled my way through those tough times. That's not what bothers you. You know what bothers you? If you sit down with somebody who's in the last 5 minutes of their lives and it occurs to them that they blew it, they wasted it, they threw it away, that nearly drives them mad. They're out of time and they wasted it. Listen to the words of Solomon, Ecclesiastes. Vanity of vanities. This is chapter 1. Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, vanity of vanities, all is vanity. What profit has a man of all his labor which he takes under the sun? One generation passes away and another generation comes, but the earth abides forever. The sun also rises, the sun goes down, hastens to his place where he arose. The wind goes toward the south, turns to the north, whirls about continually, and the wind returns again according to his circuits. All the rivers run into the sea, and the sea is not full. Unto the place from whence the rivers came, there they return again. He's saying, what's the point? The world's just going to go on after I die. It's all going to go on just the same, and I didn't mean a thing. All things are full of labor. Man cannot utter it. 1 verse 8. The eye is not satisfied with seeing, nor the ear filled with hearing. Isn't that the truth? You discover quickly in life there is no time to do everything you'd like to do. And you can't become good at all the things you'd like to become good at. You're going to have to pick and choose. You're never done in this world. Verse 14. I have seen all the works that are done under the sun, and behold, all is vanity and vexation of spirit. He's coming to the finish line and he's saying this. What was the point? What was the point of my life? Now, who's writing this? If this were some slave putting together shoes in a factory somewhere, 14 years old, you could understand why they'd write words like that. They feel futile. If this is the CEO of AIG or Lehman Brothers in the United States in 2008 and they just lost it all, if this is the CEO of Enron a few years earlier, you could understand why they would write bitter words like that. If this is a family just cast out of their home by the bank and they're on the street and they don't know what to do next, you could understand why they'd write words like this. If this was a subsistence farmer in Rwanda with 14 kids in a hut 2 meters by 2 meters, you could understand why he would write stuff like this. But this is not those people. This is the King of Israel. You can't dismiss this saying he's poor and he got a bad hand in life. This is the King of Israel writing this. You can't dismiss it. You can't write it off. He had everything in life. 2 verse 8. I gathered me also silver and gold and the peculiar treasure of kings and provinces. Had money. I got me man singers and woman singers. He had an iPod, at least the equivalent of it. The delights of the sons of men is musical instruments, so that of all sorts. So I was great and increased more than all that were before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. He's wise, he's educated, he's powerful, he's got entertainment, and he's got money. And whatever, verse 10, whatsoever my eyes desired, I kept not from them. He took everything he wanted in life. I withheld not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was all my portion of all my labor. Then I looked on the works that my hands had wrought, and on the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity. Wasted it. He had everything, except the one thing that the human heart really craves: to know that God is smiling over your life. He doesn't have the smile of God. It's a horrible feeling when it dawns on you that you've wasted it. Horrible. To discover you're not on the right side. Steve was the worst, I almost said soccer. Football, right? Steve was the worst footballer in my high school. I was thankful for the presence of Steve, because if he hadn't been there, I would have been the worst footballer in my school. It's a shame for a Dutch kid not know how to play that game. Steve was terrible. Nobody wanted Steve on their team. But one day a miracle took place. Somebody passed the ball to Steve. We were all in shock. Why would you do that? And Steve took the ball, and it was like the Red Sea parting. It was literally like a miracle. Everybody got out of the way, and he went down the center of the field, and he kicked the ball right over the goaltender's head, right into the net. We could not believe what was happening. And Steve was so excited, he couldn't believe it. He turned around and he punched the air with joy. Woohoo! And our jaws were on the ground. We couldn't believe what we'd just witnessed. Steve had just scored on his own net. Imagine thinking you're winning, and discovering you blew it. There's a story that haunts me in Acts chapter 9. It's the story of Saul. He's a living example. Saul is a promising young man. He's at the height of his career. He knows what he wants. He's going to defend the honor of the religion of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He's going to round up that new sect of believers, the Christians. He's going to have them tossed in jail and executed. He knows what he wants. He's going to kill the Christians. And he knows he's right. He's got the backing of the religious leaders in Israel. He's got a certificate from the temple that allows him to put these people in prison. How much more right could you be? And suddenly he discovers he's scoring on his own now. Acts 9 verse 3. And as he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly there shone round about him a light from heaven. And he fell to the earth, and heard a voice saying unto him, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? You know, you don't even have to finish reading the story to know who's speaking to him. People have personality traits. Jesus does too. I don't have a lot to back up what I'm about to say, but this seems to be one of his. Have you noticed how he often uses people's names twice? Samuel, Samuel. Mary, Mary, Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me? Listen carefully to the story. It's in Acts 9. Because Saul's about to ask two questions that if you ask them every morning of your life, you will get to the finish line right. And he said, who are you, Lord? There's the big question in the great controversy, isn't it? Who are you? The Lord said, I am Jesus, whom you persecuted. It's hard for you to kick against the goads. Verse 6. And he, trembling and astonished, said, Lord, what would you have me to do? There's the other question. Who are you, Lord? What would you have me do? It's not rocket science. They're simple questions. And the Lord said to him, arise and go into the city, and it will be told to you what you must do. Verse 9 says that he was 3 days without sight, sitting in the dark, didn't eat, didn't drink. What's going through his mind for 3 days in the dark? What's he thinking about? 3 days blind in the dark. Some of you have a hunch of what it might be. I know I do. A little over 20 years ago, I went through it. Didn't literally go blind, but I found myself disoriented. Everything I thought in life was right was wrong. 18 years old, I wanted to run for office. I thought the most important thing in the world was money. Good thing I didn't stick with that plan because I still don't have any. But if I could just accumulate enough money, I'd be spending my life well. So many people go down that path. A lot fewer now since 2008. A lot of people had the rug pulled out from underneath them very quickly. I remember listening on the radio to a man saying I was making 15% a year with Madoff, Bernie Madoff. Did you hear his name down here? Oh yeah. Biggest Ponzi scheme in the 20th century, or 21st, I guess, now. Man said I was making 15% a year. I was fabulously wealthy. I was set for life. And in one phone call, and he hesitated, it was on the radio, he starts to weep on the radio. In one phone call, it's all gone. So if your life meaning is built on the balance in your bank account, when the money's gone, and it will be, pay attention to prophecy, it will be gone. It will go. When the money's gone, it means your life means nothing. That's what it means. If that's what your life is about, when the money's gone, you mean nothing. And it's coming. Don't doubt it for a moment. It's coming. Go to now, howl, you rich men, for your miseries that will come upon you. It's coming. If that's what life is, you will mean nothing in the end. At one point, I thought entertainment was the point of life, and I loved entertainment. I studied music at the Toronto Conservatory for about 9 or 10 years, and in college, I thought, we need a little entertainment in this little student apartment of ours. That's what we need. And I had $100 to my name in college one time, and do you think I spent it on books? Did I spend it on tuition or rent? No, I thought what this apartment needs is a television set. So I went into town, and I bought a black and white television. I didn't get much for $100. A black and white 13-inch television, rabbit ears on top, and I brought it home. Will I get anything? I got 4 stations. It was remarkable. I got 4 stations in my student apartment, and I made some remarkable discoveries. Every night at 9 o'clock, MASH came on, and that was really good. And at 9:30, MASH came on again. And at 10 o'clock, the news came on, and I'm a political science major. You know what a political science major is. In the 4th year, they say, everybody repeat after me. Would you like fries with that? Well, why would we have to say that? Well, you're going to need it with this degree. That's all you're qualified to do. Political science and economics. I put economics in with it. I had to watch the news. Then at 11 o'clock, David Letterman came on. I don't know if he was ever on down here. Did you get David Letterman? In those days, he was doing Velcro Man. Oh, I could not miss Velcro Man. He put on a Velcro suit, and he had a little trampoline, and he would jump on the trampoline and stick to a Velcro wall. That was the whole point of the whole exercise. And I could not wait to see that at 11 o'clock. And then at midnight, the late edition of the news came on. And then at 1 o'clock, I made the most remarkable discovery. Bonanza came on at 1 o'clock, and it repeated again at 2 o'clock. That is my favorite show on earth. Jean used to know when she got off work late on a Saturday night, she'd call me. I'm on my way home, and if she heard the theme music to Bonanza in the background, she knew I was going to hang up in less than 30 seconds. I mean, how do you not watch Bonanza? The only problem with all of that is that I had a class in symbolic logic at 7 a.m. at the University of Victoria, and it took me an hour and a half to get over there. And I failed it, oddly enough. I plea bargained my way up to an incomplete with the professor. I didn't get the F I so richly deserved, but I look back on that now, a whole year down the drain because I entertained myself till 3 in the morning. The only thing I learned that year is how to run squatters off my ranch. That's the only thing I learned. Maybe popularity is what life is about. The other day I asked my kids, you know, is Daddy cool? No. You know I was cool, right? No. Thought it was about power. Wanted to run for office, so I started to volunteer for all this political stuff. I volunteered for a fundraiser, waiting on tables. I'm 18 years old. And I went into the restroom, and one of the most powerful men I knew was laying on the floor drunk. And it was a big name. The kind of name that you might actually even recognize here if I were to utter it out loud. And I thought, look at this mess. And he looked up at me, his tears running down his cheeks, his nose is running. He's a mess. Shirt disheveled, and he says to me, I am nothing. I have nothing. And I looked at him and I thought, you have everything I want. And I left there thinking, that can't be it. I want to give you a challenge on your way out the door today. Take the 3-day poll challenge. If you can afford to take the time, go find a quiet place for 3 days. Get rid of your cell phone, get rid of the internet, get rid of the radio, get rid of the television. Just go there with your day planner and with your Bible and ask God 2 questions. Who are you? And what would you have me do? And then put it all out on the table. Your plans, your relationships, your involvement in God's church. Put it all on the table. If you can't do 3 days, do 1. Can't do a day, do 3 hours. But in the dark, quiet by yourself. I promise you, He speaks. He speaks. But you have to turn off the noise. And I'd encourage you to do it now. Do it now when you can be like Saul and do something about it. You don't want to be like Belshazzar, where the moment comes when the finger's writing on the wall and it's too late. Do it now. There's a story in Luke chapter 12 about a guy who comes to Jesus. It's a remarkable story. One of the company, this is Luke 12 verse 13, one of the company said to him, Master, speak to my brother that he divide the inheritance with me. Master, I've been ripped off. Dad died, and my brother and I are supposed to share the inheritance. And I know he's the older brother. He gets a bigger portion of the inheritance, but he kept it all. And we've already been down to the court, and the judge says that I get my portion, but he won't pay me. And you're the great teacher. You're the master. Go and speak to him. Get him to do the right thing. Just as a friendly word of advice, don't ask your pastor to do that kind of thing. No, really, sicking the pastor on people only makes the mess worse. Jesus' answer is remarkable. I mean, if I had that problem, I'd go to Jesus too. His answer is remarkable, though. Verse 14, he said unto him, Man, who made me a judge or a divider over you? You don't understand, said Jesus. That's not why I'm here. We have no evidence that this fellow was asking for something immoral or illegal. It probably was his money. He probably had a legitimate claim, and he goes to Jesus and says, help me get this money. And Jesus said, who made me a judge or divider over you? This is not why I'm here. This is not who I am. This is not what I do. It's like he's blowing this guy off. He's just dismissing him. He's not, though. He's trying to save all of us a lifetime of heartache or a moment of panic just before we die. He said unto them, take heed and beware of covetousness, for a man's life does not consist in the abundance of the things which he possesses. Jesus said, oh, be careful. You are more than what you own. That's not who you are. The stuff you have, your achievements, that's not who you are. In a few words, Jesus rips down the priority system of a sinful human race. Just rips it down. Our philosophy, eat, drink, and be merry. Jesus says, be careful. Don't build your whole life on something that won't last. Because when that something is gone, your life will mean absolutely nothing. And it all goes. There's only one thing that lasts forever in the Bible. The Son of Man came to the Ancient of Days and received a kingdom which will never be destroyed. It's the one thing you can build your life on that will still be there in 10,000 years. But the rest of it, it doesn't last. We were living just outside of Los Angeles in Simi Valley, California, and it was time to move. We've done a lot of moving in life. And Naomi, who is here today and said she doesn't mind if she becomes a sermon illustration, had built a cardboard castle in the garage, a fort. It was a wardrobe box, the big ones, and she'd turn it on its side, and she'd cut a door in it that opened, and she was little, and she'd cut a window in it with cross pieces and drawn a flower box under the window, and that was her castle, her fort. And there were, you remember your fort, don't you? And you had pillows on the inside of the fort, and you even wired it for electricity. That made me a little bit nervous. You ran a wire into the ceiling and screwed a 100-watt bulb into it inside of a cardboard box, and it got plenty hot in there. But I let you have that fort in the garage. But then it came time to move. I looked at the fort, which had been well loved at that point, starting to fall apart, and I knew it wouldn't survive the move. And we're loading the truck, and a little voice asks me, Daddy, aren't we going to take my fort? I knew it wouldn't survive, and there's no room for it. No, honey, we're not. But Daddy, that's not fair. I worked so hard on it. I know, honey, but you're going to find out eventually in life that almost nothing lasts forever. Almost nothing does. Life is full of cardboard forts. Your childhood was one. Came and went in a heartbeat. One moment you're playing in the sandbox, the next minute they're digging up some sand for you. It's true. Your youth? Cardboard box. It is. I was looking in the mirror a little while ago, saw my reflection, I thought, when did I turn into my dad? I don't know how that happened. It absolutely did. And where's my hair going? I mean, I've got one of the world's biggest comb overs. The truth is, I went for a haircut, and the girl cutting my hair said, you're getting cul-de-sacs. I said, what do you mean? She said, you could park cars up underneath here. And I said, well, where's my hair going? And I'm panicking. Where's my hair going? And I found it. Now it's growing on my back. That's where it went. It's gone. I'm sitting on an airplane on my way to Singapore. And a 26-year-old woman sits next to me, and we strike up a conversation. I find out her father teaches Frisian history, and my father's a Frisian. Nobody knows who the Frisians are. I wanted to stay in touch as we're landing, and I said, how can we stay in touch? She said, well, cell phone. I said, I never answer it. Email? I said, I never look at it. I never see all my emails. It'll get lost in there. I said, but you know what? I'm on Facebook. Are you on Facebook? She said, yes, I'm on Facebook. I said, great. And we're getting up out of our seats because the plane has landed. And she says, but I didn't think guys your age used Facebook. It was the first time in my life I realized the youth group didn't think I was in the youth group. All cardboard boxes, and out of love, Jesus says desperately, be careful, you are not stuff. Don't build your life on stuff that disappears, and it all disappears. And he tells a story. He spoke a parable to them, saying, the ground of a certain rich man brought forth plentifully. And he thought within himself, saying, what shall I do, because I have no room where to bestow my fruits? And this he said, this will I do. I will pull down my barns and build greater, and there I will bestow all my fruits and my goods, and I will say to my soul, soul, thou hast much goods laid up for many years. Take thine ease. Eat, drink, and be merry. But God said to him, thou fool, this night thy soul shall be required of thee, then whose shall those things be which you have provided? So is he that lays up treasure for himself and is not rich toward God. What's the secret of living well? You know what's interesting is that all of the greatest conquerors in the history of the world thought they were failures. All of them. Alexander the Great pushes all the way across the Middle East, gets all the way to the far reaches of India. He sees the ocean, and he weeps like a little baby because he assumes, now I've run out of world to conquer. That's it, I'm a failure. Goes back to Babylon, drinks himself to death. Julius Caesar, great conqueror, is conquering the world at an alarming rate, and in one community he sees a statue to Alexander the Great, and when he sees it he begins to weep like a little boy, because Alexander was only 32 when he conquered the world, and Julius is already older than that. I'm a failure. It'll always get taken away from you if it's the wrong thing. Napoleon, in exile, asks Count Montholon a question. This is the end of his career. He said, what do you know of Jesus? He's been thinking a lot since his career ended. What do you know of Jesus? He said, I don't know anything. So Napoleon says this, let me tell you about Jesus then. Here's what he said. What a conqueror. A conqueror who controls humanity at will and wins to himself not only one nation, but the whole human race. What a marvel. He attaches to himself the human soul with all its energies, and how? By a miracle which surpasses all others. He claims the love of men, that is to say, the most difficult thing in the world to obtain, that which the wisest of men cannot force from his truest friend, that which no father can compel from his children, no wife from her husband, no brother from his brother, the heart. Jesus claims it. He requires it absolutely and undividedly, and he obtains it instantly. Alexander, Caesar, Hannibal, Louis XIV strove in vain to secure this. They conquered the world, yet they had not a single friend. Or at all events, they have none anymore. Christ speaks, however, and from that moment all generations belong to him, and they are joined to him much more closely than by any ties of blood, and by a much more intimate, sacred, and powerful communion. He kindles the flame of love which causes one's self-love to die and triumphs over every other love. Now that I languish here at St. Helena, chained upon this rock, who fights? Who conquers empires for me? Who even still thinks of me? Who interests himself for me in Europe? Who has remained true to me? That is the fate of all great men. It was the fate of Alexander and Caesar as it is my own. We are forgotten, and the names of the mightiest conquerors and most illustrious emperors are soon only the subject of a schoolboy's task. Our exploits come under the rod of a pedantic schoolmaster who praises or condemns us as he likes. What an abyss exists between my profound misery and the eternal reign of Christ, who is preached, loved, and worshipped, and lives on throughout the entire world. Is this to die, or is this not rather to live eternally? Teach us to number our days. Paul, of course, comes out of the dark. Goes on to write most of the New Testament. I'm sure his family thought he'd lost his mind. And in 2 Corinthians, he writes this. My ambition is to please him. My ambition, what would you have me to do, Lord? My ambition is to please him. But I don't know how to please God. I don't know how to put a smile on the face of God. Look at me. I've got nothing to bring. My life disqualifies me. I don't have talent. How do I stand in the presence of God? How do I put a smile on the face of God? I don't have what it takes. I don't have what it takes to go out and share Jesus with somebody. That's the province of special people who become missionaries and evangelists. I can't put a smile on the face of God. I'm laying in bed after back surgery. Suddenly, one Sunday morning, the bedroom door flies open and both of my children came running in. Happy Father's Day! And I thought, have I been laying in this bed that long? It's Father's Day already. They presented me with all the usual treasures, homemade cards. And, Daddy, we made you breakfast for Father's Day. Oh, boy, that sounds good. And they presented it to me. I'm sorry, honey, but I have to tell the truth. They know I like cashews. It's my weakness. I like cashews. And so they thought, how can we make these cashews delicious for Daddy? And they put them on a plastic Tinkerbell plate. I know it was your sister. It wasn't you. I know, honey. Put the cashews on the plate and covered it with honey and put it on high on a plastic plate in the microwave for about 2.5 hours. Daddy, we made you breakfast. Oh, it looks so good. Aren't you going to eat some? Maybe a little later. No, you have to try it. I pulled up a cashew and Tinkerbell's left arm came with it in a long string. I put it in my mouth. Oh, that is good. That is. Oh, good. Now you have to hurry up, Daddy. You're going to be late for the show. And what show? I said, we're going to put on a Father's Day show. And they gave me a ticket made with paper and crayon. Said, admit one Father's Day show. Hurry up. So I got out of bed with my walker and I have my ticket in my hand and I'm making my way to the stairs. I discovered something really important that morning is don't try the stairs in your walker. It doesn't end well. You'll get to the bottom really quickly, but it's not the right way to go. And I got down finally and I got to the family room and they were in the green room, which means they were in the laundry room getting ready for the big show. And I lowered myself gingerly into the sofa there and I heard them getting ready, heard them getting ready, heard them getting ready. And finally the door opened and my eldest came out. And something's wrong with her face. Her eyelids are severely inflamed. And being the sensitive dad that I am, what's that on your face? She said, makeup. We don't have bright red eyeshadow in this house. Where in the world would you get, why would you be wearing makeup at all? She says, well, Daddy, it's a show and the actors wear makeup. You can't wear makeup like that. They said, well, Daddy, you wear makeup when you go on TV. It's true, but if the barn needs painting, you know. How are we going to get that off your face? Don't worry, Daddy, I thought about that already. It'll come off easy. It's Sharpie marker. Oh boy, I'm really going to get it. Jean's going to think I put them up to this somehow. She's colored her whole face up. I said, what is that on your cheeks? She said, it's glitter. Glitter glue. So she's got glue and glitter on her cheeks and Sharpie marker on her eyelids. Oh my goodness, this is what a mess. Don't you want to see the show? Yeah, I want to see the show. Go ahead. Daddy, they were making it up as they went along. I know that. Daddy, 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 you're the greatest daddy in the world. We love you. You could have had tickets for anything that morning, and I wouldn't trade you. Celtic woman, wouldn't trade you. The 3 tenors, I wouldn't trade you. Tears in my eyes, it was the most beautiful show on earth. Don't you get it? I said, I'm not good enough for God. No, you're not. He's your dad. So you go out there and win somebody for Jesus. Well, I'm going to make mistakes. Yeah, you are. But you go out there with Sharpie marker on your eyelids and glitter glued to your cheeks, and you go out there and do it. And he considers it a love gift made out of construction paper and noodles. He loves you. Don't waste 1 minute. There's no joy like stepping into the stream where God is working and seeing somebody come to Christ. You will take that with you for eternity. The rest of it, cardboard boxes. Father in heaven, this morning in the quiet of this moment, we marvel at how you can speak through a few words in Scripture. Teach us. Teach us to use our time and build our lives on the things that really matter. On the kingdom of Christ. The one thing that will still be here 1,000,000 years from now. We put our hearts and our lives in your hands. We pledge to follow the Lamb wherever he leads. In Jesus' name.